For the past year, these meetings, year plus now, have been held electronically pursuant to the governor's Safer at Home order. And we're doing this, of course, to also ensure the safety of all residents and staff and members of the HRA. So they're all participating from home or office. And as we begin, there's a few things to cover. There's no public hearing matter in front of the HRA this morning, just the community comment. So that'll be the only opportunity for people to speak to the HRA this morning on a topic that is not on the agenda or otherwise scheduled for a future public hearing. And if you want to reach the HRA and discuss any matter of concern with you that doesn't fit in one of those two categories, you can call 800-374-0221, and the conference ID number is 715-3347, 715-3347. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Our administrative support specialist, Liz Olson, will be the timer, and she'll let you know when you go over the 3-minute mark, and then you need to wrap up your comments. So do the best you can not to be redundant, but certainly everybody's welcome to have their voice expressed here with respect to those limitations as previously discussed. So thanks in advance for your patience as we work to conduct this meeting with all kinds of different technologies and 20 people working from home. And with that, we will call the meeting to order. And roll call, please, will be conducted by Liz Olson. Ms. Olson.
Thank you. Commissioner Pierce.
Here.
Commissioner Staunton.
Here.
Commissioner Jackson.
Here. Chair
Hupland.
Here. Next matter on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got a form of meeting agenda in front of us this Thursday morning. Is there anyone who wishes to modify the agenda in any form? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda as shown.
So moved.
Commissioner Jackson moves.
Second.
Commissioner Pierce seconds. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Ms. Olson, with respect to adoption or approval of the meeting agenda.
Commissioner Pierce.
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton.
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson.
Aye.
Chair Hupland.
Aye. The meeting agenda is approved. And next we are going to do community comment. And just a reminder, folks, that number, if you want to call in and talk to the HRA about something that's not on the agenda today or scheduled for a future public hearing, call 800-374-0221, conference ID 715-3347, 715-3347. Director Bennerite, good morning. Do we have anybody in the queue?
Good morning, Chair Hupland, members of the Commission. It is pretty early, and I do not have anyone on the line at this time, so my week of loneliness continues from the laundry room here in Cannon Falls. Because there is a slight delay in the broadcast, I would recommend we wait about a minute or so before moving on with the agenda, just in case we do have callers trying to get in. My clock shows that it's 7:35, so I will come back to you when I have a caller, or 7:36, whichever comes first.
Thank you, Director Bennerot.
Now 7:36, and I still don't have any callers, so I think it's safe for you to move forward with the agenda.
All right, thank you, Director Bennerot, for your vigilance. Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda. There's one item on the consent agenda, and that is the draft minutes of the regular meeting of March 25th, 2021. Would someone care to make a motion to adopt the singular item on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner Jackson
Second.
moves. Commissioner Staunton seconds. Takes the pressure off Commissioner Pierce. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Ms. Olson, with respect to adoption of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Commissioner Pierce,
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Chair Hupland.
Aye. The singular item on the consent agenda, the minutes of the meeting of March 25th, 2021 are adopted. And now we're going to move on to the reports and recommendations portion of the HRA agenda. We've got two matters to deal with in that portion of the agenda. Stephanie Hawkinson, our Affordable Housing Development Manager, has the first matter, and that deals with something that we've been talking about for a while, the Home Rehabilitation Program. And Ms. Hawkinson, welcome. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning. Thank you. We have a guest today as well, Jim Hasnick from the Center for Energy and the Environment. Has joined us in case there are some questions regarding program administration or loan servicing or how this has panned out in other communities. So if you have any questions regarding this program that he can answer, he is available to do so. I will share my screen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hasnick. Thank you, Mr. Hasnick, for being with us this morning. Appreciate you being here to stand by for questions if there are any.
Oh, of course. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, Manager Hawkinson, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no worries. Okay, I think we have it there. So as you indicated, this is not the first time I brought this forward. I came forward on March 11th to seek authorization to have our attorneys work on this program to get general program approval for moving forward. And then I was going to come back to you, which I am doing today, to talk about how it is structured, who our partners will be, and that we have agreements in process, and including the mortgage and notes with the borrowers. So getting final approval today. So last time when I presented this program, this home rehabilitation program, we were thinking about partnering with both Center for Energy and the Environment to be the program administrator and then having a different servicer. Upon further contemplation and talking with potential servicers, we felt that for efficiency's sake, as well as for some financial savings, to have CEE do both pieces, have it all in one house. It just seemed a lot smoother that way. Then our partners, of course, would be Edina residents who would partake in this. And then ultimately, we hope to continue our work with the West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust if the borrowers decide to give the HRA first right of refusal to acquire their home to place it in the land trust. So this will look familiar to you. The program is a pilot program for $250,000. We anticipate that will fund up to 8 loans in this pilot of just roughly under $30,000 each. And these I put approximations because we don't know how much people are going to borrow. We don't know exactly when they're going to sell their homes or refinance or want to satisfy the loan. And so some of these fees are based on ongoing servicing with a monthly fee. So I calculated it out as if everyone were maxing out at about $29,000 loan, and they're going to keep in place for 30 years. So there are some approximations in here.
Manager Hawkinson, your internet connection seems unstable this morning. I don't know if that might help.
All right, I apologize. I don't know what else to do. I'm breaking in and out.
Not to me.
You're fine on my side.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Maybe it's me.
Well, let's hope that rectifies.
Yeah, go ahead. It might be me.
So what CEE would the pretty much help us throughout the whole program. The They would assist in helping us design marketing. They would accept and review the applications with the homeowners. They would meet the applicants to inspect the house and discuss the rehabilitation needs and priorities. They inspect the final work when the city inspector is not required. So if for any project that requires a permit, our city inspectors would be involved. For projects such as painting that do not require a permit to be pulled, CEE would then be doing the inspections before paying the contractor rather than getting our inspectors involved in inspecting work scopes that they don't typically involve themselves in. They would then pay the contractor and do the ongoing servicing of the loans. And I went through this before and it's similar to the previous slide, so I'm not going to go through in detail, just how we would work with the homeowner and making sure in our communication with CEE to make sure these loans get processed, the work gets done, contractors get paid, and then it's on the books. So as presented, this remains the same, where we'd serve homes up to 125% of area median income. This differs from the Hennepin County program that has a maximum of 80% of area median income. We'd address health, safety, code, and energy issues. And we'd also include accessibility modifications, loan to value of 110%, maximum loan is $30,000, deferred, and with a 2% non-compounding simple interest that's deferred. And I'll explain that in just a minute. And then the full loan and interest would be forgiven if the home is ultimately sold to the HRA. It was discussed at the last meeting, why are we deferring the interest? There are a few reasons for this. So we went back and had some discussions as to whether or not we wanted this to be an interest-only loan or if we wanted the full thing deferred. And we, as staff and with CEE, have opted to present to you a fully deferred program, in part because we want to make this a little bit more unique than what's on the market. With it fully deferred, there is no impact on monthly cash flow. The borrowers would not have to worry about any sort of monthly payment. There would not be monthly servicing of these loans. It would be, they would borrow, it'd be on the books, and then they could put it out of their mind from a monthly perspective. There was concern about the interest accruing and what that impact that would have on their equity. If a borrower borrowed the full $30,000 for the full 30 years, the interest would come to $18,000. Based on history of housing values in Edina and how they have been increasing in value, we are feeling comfortable that the $18,000 over 30 years would be more than compensated by the increase in value in the home, and they would still be able to walk away with a fair amount of equity if they were to want to repay the loan rather than having the HRA buy the house. Yet, at the same time, this program, the folks that have already talked to me about being interested in it are those who want to ultimately convey the house to the HRA. They like the idea of permanent affordability, but they're not ready to move. They don't know if they want to move for the next 10 years, but they are interested in doing some work on their home for the next 10 years to make it a more livable environment for them. So this really is intended for borrowers who are leaning towards the forgiveness option. With interest rates in the market right now being so low that those where that isn't a priority for them, there are options in the marketplace. And one of the reasons we wanted to provide something that was unique and different from what's offered in the marketplace. And I believe that concludes my presentation. But to see if you have any questions. The loan agreements and servicing agreements were in the packet along with the mortgage and note. I will say that there are some tweaks that we're going to be making to the agreements. We had some questions. I mean, they're not really material to the agreement, but just fleshing out, when is insurance pulled on the homeowner who's borrowing, whether or not we would allow this mortgage to be in fourth position, and just getting the attorneys comfortable with the equity qualifications and things like that. But I talked to our city attorney. He does think that the remaining issues are pretty minor and that we can get them fleshed out.
Questions for Manager Hawkinson from the commissioners? Commissioners Staunton?
So Stephanie, we've got this 2% interest. Is that something that we might revisit in the future if interest rates went up in general?
Chair, Commissioner, depending on when the loan goes out, again, this is a pilot. If I don't believe that we'd be adjusting, they would sign a mortgage and a note at the closing.
I understand that we wouldn't change a loan that we've already done, but if we had a program in the future, if the program continued, we might have to adjust the interest rate if interest rates globally were changing.
Chair, Commissioners, of course, yeah, and that is one reason I wanted to do a relatively small pilot to work out the kinks, and we could of course make multiple adjustments if needed, and that being one of them.
All right, thank you.
I've got a couple of questions for you, Stephanie, and maybe for Mr. Hasnick. So the odds are we'll be in a secondary position from a security standpoint with a $30,000 loan, assuming that most people probably have a mortgage already that they're dealing with.
Chair, Commissioner, excuse me.
Go ahead. Yeah, is that a fair assumption?
Chair, Commissioners, yes, that's a fair assumption. I did want to point out that with our Come Home to Edina program, that is in second position. And if there were a situation where someone had bought a home through the Come Home to Edina program in the early days and they wanted to do some rehab on their home, it would be conceivable that this would be in third position, because with people that have acquired their homes with down payment assistance programs, there's already a loan in second position.
All right. Yeah, so I was just thinking about some of the other programs, at least the one other program that I recall that we have, and it might be one we use some CDBG money for, and that is a program where people can borrow a smaller amount of money to work on fixing up their home, but we kind of backstop that with a special assessment on the property. So we're going to be in a good position if the property sells. And we've got sort of maximum protection from having that special assessment agreement in place on the particular property. I wonder if you've looked at that idea here at all, or whether that merits any kind of consideration.
Chair, Commissioners, I am not aware of that program, and I have not looked at that as an option.
Mr.
I wonder,
Mr. Chair, are you suggesting that's something we should look into, or that there is an existing program out there like that?
I thought that we had in one of our programs where we would lend people money to fix up their homes a little bit, where they could maybe borrow up to a couple $1,000s. That we used a special assessment method to protect ourselves on the money that we loaned to them.
It's
But
sort of that,
even if my memory is faulty on that, it still seems to me that a potential special assessment methodology might be another way of providing us with further security. So give that some thought. I'd look into it if I were you. Okay. Yeah, and maybe Mr. Kendall's on the call. He can maybe opine on that as well.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the documents for this program currently do not include anything regarding a special assessment waiver and agreement, but I could certainly look into whether we should include that provision in these documents.
We used those provisions when we were doing the PACE program, so that when those improvements were energy efficiency related or sustainability related, we ran into a hurdle though using the PACE program for residential property. Ours was restricted to commercial only, but it sounds like the same concept that you're thinking about.
Yeah, I recall, I think we had one project in the case category that was commercial in nature and couldn't ever figure out how to do it residentially, but
Yep.
I don't know. I think it's worth taking a look at if we're concerned about the security aspects of it. And then is the agreement to give us the right of first refusal a contingent element of the lending?
Chair, Commissioners,
Do they have to do that?
they do not have to do that. They have to pay back the loan. If we do not buy the property in the end, the loan is forgiven if we buy it. The loan is not forgiven and due and payable if we do not buy it.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, okay. So but how do we know that we're going to be in a first position? I mean, you've talked about right of first refusal, but is that embodied in the documents itself? That they get there by virtue of them, West loaning them $30,000, up to $30,000. Are they agreeing that we have the right of first refusal to purchase our house at a market price?
Yes. It is
Yes,
that is part of the loan documents, that saying that we will have offer first refusal, and if we acquire the home, the loan is then forgiven.
Okay, understood. I just wanted to make sure that we had that right of first refusal in the documents. Mr. Kendall, is that right?
Mr. Chair, that is correct.
All right, thank you.
Can I just jump in there?
Commissioner Staunton?
Just
Sure.
Can you explain that right of first refusal? The detail of that, is that if they have an offer, we have a right to match it, or how does it work?
Chair, Commissioner, perhaps Mr. Kendall can answer that more accurately. As I understand it, if the house were sold, we would get offer first refusal. If we inspected it and we found that this was just not going to work in our program for whatever reason, and we passed on it, we have the option to pass. We are not required to acquire a house when they are selling it.
And I understand that. What I'm trying to understand is, what's the price? Is it the price that's offered by someone else that we have a right to match, or is it some market price, or how does that work?
My understanding is that it would be the appraised value, that we would not enter into a bidding war.
Commissioner Staunton, that's correct. There's a provision in the documents providing for an appraisal, and the appraisal would govern the price.
All right, thank you.
So explain how that would work. We get an appraisal from somebody that pegs the price at $450,000, and they get an offer from somebody else for $460,000. Do they have to sell it to us for $450,000 if we want to buy it for $450,000?
Chair, Commissioners, yes. That is how with the programs that we have in place now with Homes Within Reach, sellers have a choice. They can sell it on the open market where perhaps they could get more money, or they could sell it to us for the appraised value, with the addition of knowing that the home would be preserved and placed into a land trust and be available for future owners. They had the option to sell it on the open market and make more money. In this program, they would have that option as well. They would need to pay back our mortgage, the outstanding debt, but they would have that option. They have that freedom to do so.
Mr. Chairman, I anticipate if someone got an offer that were significantly higher than the appraisal, then they would probably choose to accept that offer and use the additional proceeds to pay off the loan to the HRA.
All right, but to Commissioner Staunton's point, and some of the things that we've been concerned about is that we're short of housing stock that's affordable. I'm just wondering if the method that Commissioner Staunton's talking about might be a more effective method, so that we're in the game and we can decide if we want to be in it or not, in order to secure the house, even though we understand that if we do buy it, we're foregoing the return of the interest and the amount loaned. I don't have an opinion on that. I'm just wondering about it. I'm just musing about it. Did you guys talk through that issue?
It's certainly an option, Mr. Chair. I guess the danger is if there becomes a bidding war, then the city, of course, the city can always choose not to engage in that war, to drop out at some point. But if a bidding war occurs, then the city may end up paying, a premium for the house. But we could structure it potentially either way. If you want to explore changing the documents or adding an option for us to match an offer in addition to the provision for appraisal, we could look into that option.
I do think it makes some sense.
Commissioner Pierce, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I do think it makes sense for us to be able to match an offer, especially if we're making that decision, whether or not we want to match. That makes sense to me. But I also believe we still have to be true to market demands. So I struggle with if we structure something that suggests that a homeowner has to take an appraised value if the market demand is higher, significantly higher. I think we have to be fair to the market. But it would make sense for us to be able to match if we so chose to.
Chair, Commissioners, one of the concerns that I had with that, and this may be baggage I carry from previous jobs, is the role of government in paying something for more than what the appraised value is unduly enriching with government money. And so that is something that, maybe I've carried over for too long, is where we weren't able or allowed to pay for more than the appraised value, because there could be, the market, of course, the houses right now, when they get in bidding wars, can go for $70,000 more than what the appraised value is. And people have that option, then of course, and with our experience with what's going on right now, those who are choosing to engage in the program are those who, again, want to make sure that it remains affordable, doesn't get torn down, and is available for future families. So it's almost an emotional choice as well as a financial.
Member Pierce, Commissioner Pierce.
Yeah, just one clarification. When I think about making matching an offer, I still think we would be capped at what the value of the loan was. So if the loan repayment was $20,000, I don't think we would go above that. But if the appraised value came back at less, then the amount of the loan plus the value of the home, I still think we could go up to a max amount, or a cap would be on what we would offer. So I'm not suggesting that we get into a bidding war and we end up paying an exorbitant amount of premium for the property. I do think it's fair that if this homeowner wants to keep their home affordable as part of the trust, I do think the homeowner has some responsibility there as well.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you. It would be helpful for me to just kind of walk through this in a role-playing kind of thing. I'm a homeowner. I participate in this program. In the agreement that I sign, the agreement that I signed to do this includes a right of first refusal by the city. Then years pass and I'm ready to sell the home. I get the appraised value, or CEE gets the appraised value for me, or somebody gets the appraised value. I then contact the city or CEE or whoever is the party who would, and I say, you guys have a right of first refusal. Houses around me are selling for a premium over their appraised value. Who is it who then makes the decision on the right of first refusal? Is it the city council? Is it CEE? Is it staff? And can the current people at the city of Edina then say, you know what, this homeowner really, really wants to sell it on the open market. We will turn away our right of first refusal and let them sell it. So the city has the power to say, no, we're going to buy it at appraised value, irrespective of what's happening out there. But they also have the power to say, no, this homeowner really wants to make more money on this property. We will set aside our right of first refusal, or we will say, go ahead, we don't want the property. Is that how it works?
I don't think that's exactly how it works, but Manager Hawkins.
I'm having trouble understanding the walkthrough.
How I envision it, Chair and Commissioners, is that the homeowner, years from now, and is ready to sell the home, will look at the appraised value and knows that the city will buy it for the appraised value. They can say, okay, it's $450. The homes around me are going for a premium at $500. I have a choice to sell it to the city for $450, or I can sell it on the open market. The city will buy it from me, or has first refusal at appraised value. If I choose to sell it for more than appraised value, the city opts out because they will only go up to appraised value. So their option is then done. And then we can sell it on the open market for $500. That's how I envision it, is if they're willing to sell it for the appraised value, they come to the city. The city then can decide that the roof is caving in and the foundation's crumbling, we don't want it, and say, no, thank you. Or they come to us, they say, you're only going to pay appraised value. We want it for more. Your agreement is at appraised value. Since we want more, we are opting, we're going to go on the open market. And since then we are automatically recused because they're going to sell it for more than the appraised value, which is our agreement to them.
And then you would get your money back with the interest.
Then we'd get our money back with the loan and the interest.
So the choice is in the hands of the homeowner, not in the city.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Which is why
structured.
Which is why the notion of a right of first refusal is a bit of a misnomer here.
Yeah.
It isn't really, we don't really have a right to dictate that we purchase the property at the appraised value.
Yeah, thank you for
if it's worth
clarifying
more
that.
than that. And
But,
and
go
Mr.
ahead.
Kendall, is that what the documents reflect?
Mr. Staunton, that's correct. That's what the documents currently reflect.
Okay, thank you.
But what I see as an issue is that there's variability on appraisal. It's all of us have been around long enough to know that depending on the kind of appraiser you hire, you're going to get a certain view of the world, and as there's enough variability in there to what Commissioner Staunton is raising has some merit in terms of us thinking it through, and that is, do we want to be in the game a different way? Do we want to have the actual right of first refusal so that we would match some other offer that came in that was a written offer or not? And if we decide we don't want to match it, then they have to pay us back. Because let's say that they got an offer for $460. And we had it appraised at $450. We'll use that example. Well, at that point in time, it might be worth it for us to match the $460 offer because we'd want that house for the program. And it's not that big a jump. We're not getting in a real bidding war, but we're giving somebody else downstream from us the ability to make those decisions, those judgment calls with respect to the purchase of the property. Do they want to be in the game or not? Or just say, no, we're not interested, just give us our money back.
Just to be clear, Mr. Chair, my question wasn't intended to suggest that I think we ought to be able to acquire it for more. What I'm more concerned about is that I think the program is designed to maintain these homes and encourage people to maintain the homes, and not necessarily to provide us leverage to acquire homes at something less than a property owner wants to sell them later. And so I'm not all that concerned about acquiring it as the primary goal. I think the primary goal is to encourage people to maintain them.
Mr. Chairman, another option could be, although this could get expensive or time consuming, it could be to provide for 2 appraisals so that if there's any discrepancy, you have the option to, have a double check against the first appraisal. But that will add time and expense, of course. And if you obtain 2 appraisals and then the property owner still opts to sell it on the open market, you're out the cost of both of those appraisals. But it would provide some background or double check against the first appraisal if you're concerned about variability in appraisals.
All right. Commissioner Pierce.
So I just heard 2 things that concern me. One, with Commissioner Staunton, my frame of reference was different from yours. I was assuming we were doing this so that we could acquire homes to be in the trust, but do it in a way that's fair to the homeowner and the city. I was thinking that was the primary reason we were doing this, not to just for the upkeep of to maintain those homes. Maybe it's both. And so when my comments, I was thinking of trying to structure this in a way that made it fair to both parties, but then really gave the city a good opportunity to acquire the home. And so that's the first one. And then the second one, when we talk about appraisals, I assume that we probably would do more than one appraisal. And so hearing the offer that we might do 2, that concerns me a little bit. And it just circles me all the way back to Commissioner Jackson's comment about walking it through and understanding the scenarios and what the implications might be. It seems like that makes a lot of sense for us to make sure we understand how this program is going to be executed. Because I would assume that we would do more than one appraisal to make sure that we had a fair price that the city was making an offer to. I would also assume that we would go up to whatever the value of the loan was, if we are indeed really trying to secure the house without paying a premium for it. So that's kind of how everything was working in my mind, but I'm not sure that that's where we are or what the intent is.
Mr. Chair.
Yep, Commissioner Staunton.
So if that is the goal, then I think we need to be very upfront with the borrower about that the presumption is we are trying to acquire the home in order for it to be maintained in an affordable status, and that's the default. That, you know, if it turns out that it's worth more than the appraised value, you certainly can sell it to someone else. But if it is the appraised value or less, then we have the right to buy it. And that's the reason you're getting into this at the front end. So I just want to be clear with the homeowner about that, so we're not leveraging our way into something that, you know, I could see somebody painting this as well, you offered Granny the ability to fix up her house, and now you're taking her nest egg later on.
Chair, Commissioners, indeed. And this is why this program wouldn't be for everyone. What I have heard is some people are not fixing up their homes, because they're afraid that when they sell it, it's just going to get torn down anyway. So what's the point of, you know, fixing some of these deferred maintenance issues when it can limp along for another 7 years? So that is what we're hearing. And the folks that have called me thus far have said, you know, they've received the postcard or whatever, and they're like, yeah, we're really interested in this long-term preservation, but not today. I would like to live in my house for another 10 or 15 years, but I need some work done on it too. So it would have to go in, if it's just to fix up a home, currently today, the interest rates are low enough where people can borrow on the open market if they have some equity in their home. So it's a two-pronged approach. It's to address deferred issues. It's to make the home, if someone is, a senior is aging in place and wants to live in the home, to make sure that modifications are made in the home so they can do so. And with their eyes wide open, that the loan is forgiven if they sell to us how we envisioned it. at the appraised value. Right now, currently, we are only getting one appraisal. And I hear what Commissioner Pierce is saying, but in 30 years, the roof that they're buying today is going to be 30 years older. And hopefully the appraised value in 30 years will take into consideration the shape of the roof at that time that is 30 years newer than perhaps it would be without the loan. So that would all be in the calculation. I'm willing to move forward with it whatever fashion you want, but that is just the rationale that was the impetus for this program, was to help preserve the home for long-term affordability, to save it from being demolished or renovated to an extent that it's no longer affordable, and to allow people to live in it until they're ready to sell.
You know, I suppose that if we adopted the program you're suggesting, and we got to the point in time where we had multiple appraisals and the price in the marketplace was above those appraisals because it was just a seller's market, the HRA could always make a determination with the advice of the housing manager we have in place at the time whether they want to buy it above the above the appraised value. So maybe the program you've set up will work just fine. The only element I would suggest we look at is whether we want to bootstrap our security position by having it in there as a special assessment, which would give us, I think, priority over even the maybe the mortgage company wouldn't allow that. I don't know. Maybe is that an issue, Mr. Kendall? I mean, if I was if I had a home mortgage through Wells Fargo and now Wells Fargo finds out that I've got to give the city of Edina agree to a special assessment on the property, and we assume a priority position to the bank, I would assume they wouldn't like that much.
I would assume you're correct, Mr. Chair. I think they would have major objections to us trying to modify our position by backstopping it with a special assessment. So,
yeah, that might even be a violation of the conditions of her mortgage or person's mortgage. So,
yeah,
maybe we better stay away from the special assessment thing. Manager Neal.
Mr. Chair, I think you got to the point just a second ago that you're really not taking options away from your successors. You're providing, they would have the same options that you have today in terms of buying a piece of real estate, but you are providing them an opportunity in the future that they don't currently have, and not just a resident, but I'm talking about a future HRA. We're trying a lot of things here to try to find the strategy or the tools that could work in our real estate environment, and this is just another one of those things that Ms. Hawkinson has put together that may have the right set of circumstances to prevail in Edina.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if you have concerns about position on the title, I would think maybe a better option would be to just structure the program so that the city HRA would be no further down than third position or something of that nature, rather than trying to circumvent that process by having an assessment waiver, because on a residential property, I doubt that would be a viable option.
Yeah. All right. I'm glad we talked that one through. What do commissioners think about Attorney Kendall's notion that we could also create as a condition of lending that we be no further down than third in line in terms of priority position for protection of our investment?
I don't really have an opinion either way. I think if we're willing to forgive the loan if we buy it, I guess I don't have an opinion.
Anybody else have an opinion on that issue? How about the multiple appraisal issue? Folks think we should have multiple appraisals or go with the program as adopted or as recommended?
I'm fine going with the program as recommended. I just want, I think when we talk about appraisers, equity questions come into my head to make sure that, the appraiser is someone who's not going to come at it with racial bias, but that's just that's opening another can of worms, and I don't think that's part of this agreement. So I'm fine with one appraisal.
Do you think we should pay for the appraisal, or should that be added to the, if we don't purchase?
That's the next question I was going to ask. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, I was going to confirm who's paying for the appraisal. I don't think I've ever sold a house with just one appraisal. And I think in this situation, I just think it's important for us to be visibly as fair as possible to the homeowner. And so if there's a different way to do that than having two appraisals, maybe just being clear and upfront with the intent, maybe that covers it. But I think in this case, we have to be sure that to the homeowner we're being as fair as possible. At least it needs to be visibly as fair as possible to the homeowner, and that's why I was suggesting more than one appraisal.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. We had been thinking about it maybe from the city side, but not the homeowner side, so that we can go there, I think, with multiple appraisals, with two appraisals, and say, here's what we found as between these appraisers, and it should be helpful to the homeowner. I wonder if the homeowner says, no, I'm going to sell it on the open market, should the cost of those two appraisals be added into the $30,000 plus the interest that they have to repay?
Mr. Chair, I haven't seen Commissioner Staunton smile that long in these meetings, so I'm wondering what he's thinking.
I'm empathizing with Ms. Hawkinson having to let her dog in. He knocks at the window. I love that. Sorry, it's a distraction. But a good one, a welcome one, frankly.
So what about the cost? What multiple appraisals? People comfortable with multiple two appraisals, and then what about who pays for the appraisals? Under what circumstance?
What's the current circumstance, Stephanie? We pay for it? Is that no?
No, the current circumstance of the program we have now is we looked at the assessed value, and we tell the potential seller that we understand that there can be discrepancies between the assessed value and the appraised value. And so if they do not like the assessed value, they have the option of going out and getting an appraisal, but it's on their dime.
Got it.
And that presumably the increase in sales price will more than make up for the cost of the appraisal. So that's how we do it now.
And chances are in Edina that the appraised value will be higher than the assessed value.
So that's why it's the homeowner, it's on their dime, but then they make it up through the increased sales price.
I agree with Commissioner Pierce about I do think we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to build in fairness to the homeowners so that there's not kind of any accusations of us being predatory about this at the end of the day. So if that means two appraisals, that's fine. If there's some other way to do that, then we should do that. Because there is a front end, but the back end could be, 20 years down the road.
Commissioner Staunton, I might suggest that if you are considering two appraisals, we might provide that the city procure one and the property owner procure the other, so that everyone, to the extent that there's any assumption that the appraiser will favor the party who hired them, then each party has their own appraisal that they feel confident in. So that way, if there's discrepancy, you can work it out on the basis of each side has their own appraisal that presumably they trust and feel good about.
Yeah, and then I would pair that with some very, all caps letters in the front end of the deal about, here's what we're doing. We are agreeing that, we're going to sell this to the city if the value isn't above that.
So I'm fine with 2 appraisals so long as the homeowner doesn't have to pay for both of them. So I think that's an elegant solution, Mr. Kendall.
All right. Was it people comfortable with that?
So how do we move that?
I would say that that is a nuance that that is understood, but we don't have to include it specifically in the motion to approve the loan documents. I don't know what.
Well, staff will include those modifications in the final documents.
Right.
So would a
You want to
motion
move it as approved or move
so
it as
motion
amended?
as proposed with the notion that staff will amend the documents to include the second appraisal as we've discussed.
Yep. We'll do it.
So that's the motion I would make.
All right. We had a motion to approve the loan documents and service agreements with the Center for Energy and Environment to administer and service the loans for the homeowner rehabilitation program with the modifications as proposed. Attorney Kendall.
Mr. Chair, may I just ask one more question? I was having some discussions with our partners about position, and then we had some discussions during the meeting today. They were asking, I drafted the documents to put the city in second position, or the HRA in second position. They said there may be situations where the HRA may be in third position or fourth position. So I don't know if we ever resolved any discussions about that during the meeting this morning, but do you want anything in the documents regarding the idea that the city will be in no lower than third position or no lower than fourth position? Or maybe that would be in the program guidelines rather than the loan documents, but I just want to get clarity on that issue.
It's hard to make that a condition of the agreement with the homeowner, I would imagine, but it could be a guideline.
Right. I guess it would have to be a guideline. As I'm talking through it, it would have to be a program guideline rather than a condition of the loan document.
Correct.
And I guess the concern would be that we're going to loan $30,000 to someone who has the house over leveraged. Is that
there's not enough equity at the end to pay us back?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
There will be equity guidelines for the program participation. I guess the only concern would be if they meet the equity guidelines, but you're still in fourth position, it seems like there must be a very thin margin. So if you want to address that, we can. And if you just want to assume that the equity guidelines for participation will cover that risk, then we can just proceed that way.
My intuition is the equity guidelines are what's important, not, maybe they've got it sliced up in a variety of different ways. Why does it matter whether we're third or fourth or fifth if the equity guidelines are satisfied?
Agreed.
Thanks. That answers my question.
Yeah, you can see the concern that you have. I mean, you lend somebody $30,000 plus they don't pay interest, and you get to the point where they sell the house, they decide to sell to somebody else, and they can't repay us. They're supposed to, but they can't. So that what I hear folks saying is they think that'll be taken care of in the equity guidelines, but property can deteriorate over 30 years too. You can pour 30 grand into it, but if they stay there 30 years, a lot of things can go sideways.
Well, presumably over the 30 years, they'll be paying down the other debts too, though.
It may be at the end of 30 years that the best price they get is the appraised value from us. Based on the condition of the property. We're buying dirt. That's what you end up doing, is you're buying dirt. So
we've done a lot to minimize risk here, but we should be clear with you that we are putting money at risk, but we're doing it, we think, for a sound purpose.
And it's a pilot program. So they've done, I think Manager Hawkinson and Mr. Kendall have done the best they can to protect us. So if people are comfortable with those equity guidelines, managing that issue as best possible, then I will leave the motion as stated, which is to approve the loan documents and service agreements with the Center for Energy and Environment to administer and service the loans for the homeowner rehabilitation program that Manager Hawkins is establishing, along with the modifications we discussed today, which will be taken care of by staff. That was Commissioner Staunton's motion. We don't have a second yet, I don't think.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Commissioner Jackson seconds. All right. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Ms. Olson.
Thank you. Commissioner Pierce,
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Chair Hubland.
Aye. The motion is approved as stated. And next, we're going to move on to the Tenant Protection Ordinance proposal from Reese Kareem, our City Management Fellow.
Yes.
Thanks for working so diligently on this
No problem.
and getting us to the point where we can advance to the next stage. So, Manager Neal, did you have anything you wanted to say in preparatory to moving to Ms. Kareem?
Just to tell you that Reese's done some nice work on this topic. We've got it to a point where we want to present it to the HRA today because we are to a point where if we pursue this further, we're going to have to spend some money on legal services to make it go further. And if there is support from the HRA, we're certainly willing to do that, and we have some budget to do that. If we're going in the wrong direction, this is a good time for the HRA to tell us that too.
Good, thank you. Ms. Kareem, go ahead.
Well, again, good morning to you, Chair Hubland, and the commissioners. After receiving multiple correspondence from community members from the city to pass a tenant protection ordinance, I'm here today to formally request approval to begin working with the city attorney to draft a tenant protection ordinance that the city council will later on in the future approve. A tenant protection ordinance is a tool that many cities adopt. They choose to adopt in order to protect their lower income residents from housing disparities. Typically under a tenant protection ordinance, new owners of NOAA properties, which are naturally occurring housing, are required to pay moving assistance to tenants after that new property has been sold. So if they choose within that 3-month period of the sale of the property to either increase rent, rescreen the tenants, and then decide they don't want that tenant to live in that building, or altogether decide no one in that building is allowed to renew their lease, then the new owners would have to pay moving assistance to those current tenants that were previously living in an affordable housing. The Metropolitan Council considers a unit to be affordable if the tenant is paying 60% or less of the area median income. So for a 1-bedroom right now, it's considered to be affordable if it's about $1,164 or less. That's just the price for a 1-bedroom, and that's what is considered affordable. The federal government defines affordable housing is when an occupant is paying no more than 30% of their gross income for housing. A household is considered to be cost burden if the tenant is using more than 30% of their income to pay for that housing. In Edina, for a little bit over 40% of our renters are considered cost burden, which again means they're using more than 30% of their income to pay for housing. And that other 70% is just basic necessities, food, clothing, debt, bills, and things like that. And also included in that rent that they're paying would be utilities. In April of last year, the city commissioned a study to get a clearer picture of our housing stock. That study found around 700 properties in Edina that are considered to be affordable housing or 60% AMI or less, and that they were also additionally built before the 1970s, which means they are likely to be sold in the near future. So that's an additional risk that we're facing with affordable housing properties that are going to be up for sale. Also last year in August of 2020, the city approved our comprehensive plan And within that plan, the city made a commitment and also expressed a desire to aid and secure affordable housing stock, especially the ones in our community, and to protect some of our more vulnerable community members. Passing a tenant protection ordinance is just another tool that the city could use to push forward this agenda of preserving our housing stock. And it's something that you can see some of our neighboring cities have already begun to do. Starting in 2018, St. Louis Park was kind of the main city in Minnesota to kick off this initiative, which is the tenant protection ordinance. All of these cities have passed tenant protection ordinance, are currently in place, and for about 2 or 3 years now. They generally have the same things in their ordinance. You have to give a 3-month protection period where the new owners cannot raise rent, they cannot rescreen you, and they cannot tell you no, you're not allowed to renew your lease. So basically giving those tenants 3 months to decide, am I going to stay here if the rent increases, or am I going to choose to leave? So lastly, staff would like to thank the efforts of some of our community partners that took the initiative to self-organize and bring this forward to the city, especially the Edina Neighbors for Affordable Housing. They put together a roundtable earlier this year with community partners and some of the community members that did include both tenants and landlords. And the purpose of this roundtable that they put together was to have a discussion about what could be in a tenant protection ordinance and what landlords were comfortable with and what tenants were comfortable with. The product of that roundtable was provided to staff, and they provided it to staff as recommendations. And under that, they were hoping that we would use some of their recommendations and provide it to the city attorney as we are preparing for a tenant protection ordinance. Those recommendations have been received, and they were a part of the packet today. And again, just very much thankful for the Edina Neighborhood Association for kind of taking the initiative to get the community together and having a discussion about this, and bringing it to my attention as well, and pushing staff to really bring this forward. And that is it from me for this presentation.
Questions for Ms. Kareem or comments from commissioners? This is something we've been discussing for a while. Commissioner Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had probably just one question. The way I'm familiar with this working, when you talked about the 3-month period, and then you gave several criteria for that, one of those being if the rent increases. And so maybe this is in there, but what I'm more familiar with is that the owner can raise the rent, but it's typically within a certain range. And it ends up being the respective AMI for that particular property. The owner can't increase the rent above that for the unit to still be affordable. But the way I've understood the deck, it seemed like we were saying the owner can't increase the rent. And I don't think that that's the case. And so I just wanted to clarify that.
It's not necessarily the case. It's if the new owner, if they're suddenly deciding, I need to raise rent to make this profitable, they need to give the tenants at least that 3-month protection period to decide, am I going to stay here? This unit is no longer affordable. For me specifically, that unit might be affordable for someone else, but for that family in general, it no longer is affordable to them.
Okay, so that's really if the ownership changes hands. So if there's a new owner coming in and they want to raise the rent or rescreen, like you said, there are some protections there.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sutton?
Yeah, I'm picking up on that. Nice work, by the way, Reese. This is nicely prepared and really thoughtful. Couple of things. One is, I heard you say basically in the grand scheme, what we're trying to do is give a 3-month buffer, basically.
Yes. We're not saying that the tenant, the new owners can't raise rent or do whatever they want with their property, but we want to at least give some form of protection for tenants to give them that time period to figure out if they want to stay there. And with
Okay.
COVID and everything and all these rent freezes that are surely going to be ending fairly soon, it's also going to be an added layer of protection.
Sure. So that makes sense to me. And so there's some nuances as it gets crafted, I know, and then we don't need to drill into them here, but like the whole notion of renewing your lease, if it's a year-long lease at a certain rate and the end of it happens to come up during that 3-year window, we're not talking about requiring the landlord to then keep the rent at that rate for another year. It's just for the 3-month period that that's the protection we're giving, is a 3-month window to figure out whether you want to be in that building at the new price or whether you're going to go find someplace else.
Correct.
And then second is, I know I saw the list of people who participated in the roundtable that Edina Neighbors for Affordable Housing put together. And with the exception of maybe Bernadette Hornig, I didn't see anybody on there that was kind of a non-affordable housing landlord or property owner. And I wondered if we've done any outreach to that community.
We haven't, and that would be another part of staff taking this on with the city attorney to do our own research. What we have right now is what was recommendations that were provided to us by that group, but obviously staff needs to do our own vetting, and our city attorney needs to dig into this as well.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure we're reaching out to property owners in the community just to get their reaction and understanding of any nuances that they may see from this perspective.
We will make sure to do that as we're researching this.
We've
Thank you.
discussed reaching out already to the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association. That's
Right.
their kind of their advocacy group, and we've had contact with them in the past too.
All right, terrific. Thank you.
Others? Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Reese, or Ms. Cream, for this presentation. It's really useful and it's an exciting idea. I guess when we're going forward, are we starting with the elements of this ordinance outlined in the longer presentation by the Edina Neighbors for Affordable Housing? Is that sort of the blueprint that we're going to start with for writing this ordinance?
Yes and no. I think we need to do our own vetting, but yes, we will take everything they've provided to us under consideration. There are some limitations because we are a statutory B city. There are some things that we can't do. Again, that's where our city attorney comes in hand, and he's going to let us know what our parameters are.
Okay, but that's a good place for us policy-wise to sort of understand what this might look like.
Mm-hmm. And it also lets us know what our community is wanting to see.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. As we move forward, there are two things that I would like to see. I think I'd like to have a public hearing, and that might be procedurally how this would go anyways, but I would, as a city council member, love to hear the community step forward and weigh in on this, all the different voices, the different stakeholders. And then secondly, I'd also like to see how this would, the staffing of enforcement of this process, whether this would require additional staffing, who would enforce it, and how that goes forward. Because I think that might, looking at the details yesterday, I'm kind of concerned that this might require an additional staff person or some costs in enforcement and administration. So I'd like to see a breakdown of that as well. Thank you.
Others? Questions at this point in time? Is there a motion to approve and authorize the city to engage the city attorney to draft a proposed tenant protection ordinance for consideration by the HRA and the council?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Pierce moves, Commissioner Jackson seconds. Any further discussion with respect to the motion as stated? Roll call, please, Ms. Olson.
Commissioner Pierce,
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Chair Hubland.
Aye. The motion is approved. And Ms. Kareem, thank you for that excellent work.
Thank you, commissioners.
Really a fine piece of work.
Nice job. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So we're now going to move on to HRA Commissioners' comments. I don't know if anyone has a comment they wish to make. Director Benarott, are you prepared with what we discussed last night?
Yes, Scott Denfeld has those images ready.
All right. Well, one of our commissioners and our colleagues, one of our fellow council members, James Pierce, had a birthday this week. And
he had to work on his birthday.
Yeah, and we asked his wife got a hold of us, Jennifer and me, and asked how we could surprise him a little bit at City Hall, and she said, "How could we do it?" And we said, "Well, send us some photos of James through his early years." And we got these photos. This is the first one. Look at
That is a
dapper
snappy
guy.
jacket.
Yeah, and as we looked at the photos that Stephanie provided to us, yeah, it's like James has. Jennifer said, "James, he's always been cool. Just born cool." So here he is in a great band photo. I don't know what musical instrument you played. You may want to share that with us. And then switch back to that one by the car. I think as a youngster, that is, well, look at that grin on that face. That is a born cool idea. And so we hope we're not embarrassing you too much, Councilmember Pierce, but it was really fun to see these photos. And we thought, yeah, we're sharing these photos. And
Oh, they're awesome.
and we congratulate you. We congratulate you on another year of living and sharing a lot of your time with us and with the city. It's a real pleasure to have you on the council, and it was fun to celebrate your birthday. It was a bit of a surprise that way. I wish we were together so we could give you a cake with green frosting on it, but we can't do it. Not yet. So I don't know if you have any comment or you want to sit there in sort of stunned silence, but the floor is yours.
I'll just say thank you very much. That I'm not too embarrassed, but I had no idea. So whenever I see those pictures pop up, I think about social media, because I think those two photos are somewhere out in cyberspace too. So it wouldn't take too much effort to find those. But thank you very much. I definitely appreciate it. There's no better way to spend your birthday than with a working session and a city council meeting, so, followed by an HRA. So, that sets the bar pretty high. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun to have that little surprise for you. Executive Director comments. He's got one matter he wants to cover, I think, for us, and then we're going to Bill Neuendorf. Well, maybe it's the same thing. Anyway, yeah. Manager Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to take this one, and I think I'm going to share an image here. So we have, I hope you can, it's small, isn't it? We have earlier this year, I think actually late last year. Can you all see that image? Is it? I can't tell how large it is.
Yeah, well, in our packet, our electronic packet, it was more visible, but I think we know what you're.
Yeah, I just wanted to share it for anybody who's watching this meeting. You know, earlier this year, kind of late last year, we had a discussion with the HRA that we have kind of this impending deadline coming with the 5-year rule on a TIF district in the Grandview district, that we want to take advantage of some funds that are available to us now that really are going to be kind of beyond our reach here later this summer. We need to have some projects under contract so that we can use the TIF district to fund those projects, and we have to have them under contract by kind of the end of June 26th, I think the date is. And in order to have them under contract, we have to, we've been working on design. Chad and his team have been working with really a number of consulting engineers to design some water projects, some sewer projects, and some street projects that we will bring to market, get them bid, bring them back, have the HRA award them, et cetera. But this project, this pedestrian bridge project, is one that was not included in that previous group of projects because we thought we could do it another way, or we thought we might be able to put this project into the bidding process or the RFP process for our land. But we think we're going to have enough of resources available through the district and through this infrastructure funding that we're going to do to actually pay for this project as well. And that's what we're recommending to the council. Because of that we came to that realization kind of late in the process, we'd like to go forward with bringing this project to fruition through a construction manager guaranteed maximum bid project, or guaranteed maximum price, a GMP. We have done that process before. The last time we did that project, that type of project was project management, was with our golf dome. We think that it's a good process to use. It adds some cost, of course, to the infrastructure package that we're doing. But we think that this pedestrian connection between Acadia and the parking ramp, on the Jerry's parking ramp on the other side of the tracks, is an important one, regardless of what happens with our land. We think that connection for pedestrians and using that ramp and providing more utility for that ramp to connect with the other uses on the east side of the railroad tracks will be important in the future. So we'd like to get your consent to do that. If we're not able to convince you that this is a good idea, we'll put it off and we'll see if we can't do it another way. But this is a good way to fund that project, and we can get it done in the time frame that we're proposing to today.
Thank you, Director Neal. Questions, comments from commissioners? Director Milner is with us. Yeah, Commissioner Staunton.
Just looking at the image, I'm trying to understand if it's just the bridge or if it's the lead up to the bridge as well.
I think it's also the lead up to the bridge, is it not, Mr. Milner? Yes.
Correct. Yeah, we want to do the whole project because in the event that other development project doesn't occur, we still have a nice connection between those businesses on the east side of Arcadia when we know there's a major parking issue for those and Arcadia itself. So
Yeah.
we'd want to build the bridge and the sidewalk, and that could be a standalone project without that development project.
Because right now there's a severe fall off right at the edge of the Starbucks drive-through, so you'd have to build out to there and have some kind of, I don't know, retaining wall or guardrail or something to keep people from falling off of that.
Right.
So
We're
we
looking
should
at
we should emphasize that this image is really just an image. The purpose of bringing this to you today in the way that we're bringing it to you is we need to really accelerate the design process. There's a lot of design questions anytime you build a bridge over anything, but in particular a bridge over a railroad. Lots of design issues. They always cost more than you think they're going to cost. But we really want to get this accelerated and moving forward, and answer all those questions about how does it touch down on the west side of the track,
Sure.
and how does it interconnect with the parking ramp, and all those kind of design questions as well.
So fair enough. So then my comment would be yes. I mean, this is an integral part of the Grandview framework and something that if we have the TIF funding to be able to accomplish, this would be a huge piece of infrastructure to get in place so that we're creating that connectivity from the east side to the west side of the tracks.
Other comments or questions from other commissioners? Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, so I'm going a little blind. My other computer's not working this morning, but when it reaches the north-south street that runs along, and I can't remember the name of the street, I hope that there's a crosswalk.
Arcadia?
Is it Arcadia? To the east there. I hope that there's a crosswalk put in so that that little parking lot at the boy, the names just aren't coming to me, but at the restaurant there, so that people want to go to the restaurant and they don't mind walking from the ramp, they can cross over there safely.
Member
Yes.
Jackson, we would look at that. Typically,
Okay.
we would put the infrastructure in first and see how much use of it there is, and then see if it meets the warrants for a crosswalk. We don't want to put
Okay.
pavement markings or flashers where they're not warranted for that long-term maintenance piece. So that's
Okay, so that cost would be separate from
we
this
could do
project.
that later with the
That's pretty
PAX fund
minimal.
at a later date. if
Okay,
it's
great.
needed.
Thank you.
But we have the same goal, right, of using that parking infrastructure for the benefit of people that can't currently use it, and we think that'll be important.
Definitely.
All right. Commissioner Pierce, any comment, concern? All right, thank you. My only comment would be, this concept works fine to give us the notion of what you're thinking about. And I know that we'll need some structural engineers to work on this thing, but I think we better find a good architect too. Because it's going to be an important connection, and I want it to, I don't think we need to hire Calatrava, but I think we want to make sure that we get some real nice design elements out of this thing and some really good materials.
Okay.
And it's not just functional.
Okay.
So it's going to be an important component of this whole area once it's finished. So those are my comments, but I concur. So I see that you don't need a motion, but I wonder if it wouldn't be a good idea to have a motion to a, you don't need a motion?
Directors, we're going to bring back proposals at the next HRA meeting. I guess we just wanted to get some direction
Okay.
that we're on the right track, but we're going to bring back some consultant contracts for official approval on April 20th. We just didn't have time to get those together for today.
All right. Very good.
I think we get the mood of the HRA though. I think we'll get this ready to go for you.
Yep, I think you find that we're all in on the idea of the Grandview District pedestrian bridge being built, plus its attendant necessary pieces.
I do. We appreciate your support.
All right, very good. Well, I think that's it for this morning. Unless you have anything else, Director Neal?
Nope, that's all we have for you today.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We get a motion from Commissioner Jackson, second from Commissioner Pierce, I think it was, that we adjourn. Roll call, please. Who was it?
It was
Commissioner
me.
Staunton.
Oh, it wasn't the birthday guy. It was.
Yeah.
It was.
And I have to say, I'm impressed that we're done by 8:54, because after 8 o'clock, when we were still going around on the first item, I could see this one dragging on a lot longer. So well done.
Yeah. And before we adjourn, Manager Hawkinson too, that was some nice work that you did on this particular project. So thank you for that good work. All right, we got a
Keep
motion.
that dog knocking on your window.
Yeah, one more photo here. Let's see, one more.
There's another photo.
No.
Oh no.
The big finish.
It would be cool if it were.
Okay. All right.
If we sign off, we'll put your band photo up. That was
There we go.
all right. We got a motion and a second for adjournment. Roll call, please, Ms. Olson, with respect to adjournment.
Commissioner Pierce,
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Chair Hovland.
Aye. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.